And you've just heard Secret Life, which is taken from Scarred Lips' album The Threshold. And I'm delighted to be joined now by Ciara and Matthew from the band. Hello, both.
Hello, hello.
Now, before we talk about the album more widely, and I don't know who wants to take this first, decide between yourselves, but I'd like to hear about Secret Life, the track we've just heard. It's one of my favourites on the album.
Oh, that's on you.
It's kind of this is gonna be like a kind of relay one. So that song actually was part of this is probably the last song that is a kind of hangover from Half Formed Things. So Nikki had sent me, you occasionally from Australia sent me a wee demo of a piano thing, and this was well after, I think actually after the first EP had come out.
Yeah.
Presented this really beautiful piano thing, and I think she sent it to me, not because how wonderfully self-obsessed I am. I don't think she sent it to me to go, could you write lyrics over that? She says, I think she wanted my opinion. And then I got it and just immediately went, okay, here's all this vocal. But then when I sent it to Nikki, she said that was really, really good, but she'd think about it. And then I think what happened was that you and I were doing some demoing or some recording, and I had kind of brought this forward and said, can you basically make it so that the music part is supporting that vocal but is different, because I didn't want to then necessarily take Nikki's thing and say, because I think I'd be doing that quite a lot, so I felt kind of bad about it. So basically was Ciara then put it into this grand organ sound, and then from there I think I immediately heard a kind of Scott Walker Walker Brothers kind of vibe. And then I think we were at your house.
Yeah.
And we'd gotten that we bought a Yamaha PSR, which is really one. It looks like a proper big old 80s kind of like synth. And like really quickly just like put it together. And then I think I basically stole a sample from Bat for Lashes. And then that whole demo then came about. But lyrically, I think lyrically that pretty much fell into place very, very quickly, because in my mind I thought I was going to be writing a song about I was trying to like kind of like at the dark end of the street, that kind of like forbidden love thing. And actually as the lyrics progressed, it actually is more about actually the when people are in abusive relationships, they tend to not, they'll put on a pantomime in order to not let other people know that's what's going on. So all that lyric then just kind of built into this quite incredibly emotional, and it's a very, very sad song.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of the standout on the album. I think a lot of people really, really like it. And it's a very I think the genius is how simple it is, because I think musically it just does the same thing again and again. It's all the same, the same three notes again and again. And I think that for me personally, that's like when I felt my most comfortable writing vocals and lyrics. But the thing that Nikki wrote was like, as in the end, it was actually ended up being very different. So I didn't feel like, so Nikki's basically got that piece of music to then still keep going on with, but she had to get credit on the record. It wouldn't be a Scarred Lip record without Nikki getting some sort of credit, and also singing on the album as well. So yeah, of course that's the other element as well. So
it's actually the track which, whenever we've played it live, it's the one that everybody talks to us about afterwards and says how much they like. Yeah, it's the one that sticks in people's heads, probably because it's so simple.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the obviously that the lyrics, what I intended them to be, doesn't necessarily matter. And I sometimes don't really like telling people what songs are about, because for me personally, if I'm listening to a song and I've decided in my mind what it's about, and then I made the mistake of actually researching and finding out that the guy who wrote it was just an idiot and just wrote it about eggs, and I'll just go, right, that's kind of ruined that for me, that your intention wasn't what I interpreted your lyrics as. So I think that I've just ruined it. I bet someone thought it was a really beautiful song about like kind of like a secret love, and you go, nah, it's about abusive relationships. So
well, that's one of the things about the album as a whole. Musically, there's a lot of layers going on, and actually particularly on that track, I think I was reading an article about REM albums just recently, and they were talking about Monster and how on that album the guitars are kind of louder than the vocals almost all the way through, and on that song the sound is almost louder than the vocals, or it is. So to get to the meaning, sometimes you do have to do a bit of work yourself, which is great. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And is that a deliberate thing when you were doing the album as a whole, that kind of it's a big sound, quite a lot, you know, all the way.
The big sound is deliberate. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was my that was my kind of brief to Edwin. Went, can you make this the loudest record you've ever done? And he, between himself and Ed Woods, they very much delivered. And I think the other thing is that Ciara had written strings for the outro to Secret Life and written strings for lots of bits and pieces. And over Christmas, I was away in Belfast, and Ciara went to the studio with Edwin. And I had heard what Ciara had written. I went, okay, that's beautiful. We're going to do that. And then when I came back in, Edwin went, okay, well, we did this in a day. And it's just fucking orchestra. And I was just going, okay, where did this come from? I think what you basically...
I think I said it's all the stuff that's always going around in my head, but I'm just like not like physically able to play it all by myself at one time. So it took going into a studio and being able to just like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer to like just make it sound like that. And it was the same on Evelyn as well, because there was bits on that we just wrote on the hoof. So like in the studio, and we're just like, okay, what about if we add this on or that on or that on? And it was all stuff I remember when you first heard it and you'd never heard any of those bits before, and you were like, what is that? I was like, it's just in my head. So it was a really lovely process, actually.
That was the exact same process. So Ciara played all of the strings on the Half Run Things album.
Yeah.
And that was exactly the same process. Ciara came over and Evan just went, can you do some weird stuff? And Ciara started doing things. Then can you do that 9,000 more times? And then so basically took all of this and put it into like one massive, beautiful noise. And I think that having that just all over this album is just a joy. It's just incredible stuff.
Yeah, it's such a rich album musically and otherwise. I was going to ask you about the process. It sounds like it's a fairly individual one, and like, are you all asked to go away and kind of do your own thing and then come back, or how's it done?
I think certainly like over the past year, it's mostly you and I'll bounce ideas off each other. So occasionally I'll be sitting at the piano just to kind of noodling about, and I'll be like, oh, there's like kind of like a bit of a catchy kind of hook. And I'll record a few bars of something on like BandLab or whatever, and I'll send it to Matthew and be like, what about this? What do you think about this? That actually what sticks in my head is Narcopolis for that, because I was I had this big like sort of like walking chords on the piano, and then like the little tune that kind of repeats itself over and over and over again, and it sounds like so 90s. Like I love 90s dance music, and I remember sending something that sounded kind of like that, except a lot faster. Really, it was a lot faster. It was like it sounded like kind of almost like some sort of rave tune. I remember sending that to Matthew, and his response was, that's so weird, I've just been working on like a guitar riff that will fit into that really well. And that's how most of the stuff that we've written started.
Yes.
And then but then, you know, like Donal has written the bass lines. Like we didn't write any bass lines. We just gave it to Donal and said, like, here's what we've got. What have you got? And he just started writing these great bass lines. And the same for the drums. Like, you know, so we haven't been, I suppose you did use some samples and stuff. Like if you had like, especially for Secret Life, I know you had like ideas in your head, but you wanted some of the stuff to sound. But actually largely like we'll start out with the tune.
Yeah.
And then everybody else like adds their bits into that.
And I think that, for the kind of after post that album launch that we did, I think it then became very largely Ciara and I bouncing ideas, then come into the room with Donal and go, right, this is what we got. But Donal always just, he has some sort of supernatural ability to write something that initially for me, I kind of go, oh, sure. And then just go, no, that is actually unfathomable genius. Mostly down to the fact that I'm just a musical philistine. I don't know what I'm talking about. So I just kind of go, what is that? And then I just go, oh, actually, that's just the amazing sauce that I never would have thought of in 1,000 years. So yeah, and I think we went away for a wee retreat last May to really start coalescing a lot of the material, because we had about 3 or 4 or 5 songs. And we really kind of started to kind of figure out we need to go away for like a long weekend and actually get hammering into it. So that's when Last Days came out. Last Days was written there. Yeah. Last Days was the horrible bastard child of a song I was trying to write for things that no one ever liked, and I just really loved it. I'd written it for my wife. I'd never written a song for someone before. I thought this is a very beautiful song, but actually that, because Ciara went, okay, I'll just put this beautiful viola on the top of it from out of nowhere, and you're like, okay, well, that is incredible. Congress was the weirdest one, because that song, that riff, I wrote that in 1994, that's one of those little things I'll noodle with a lot.
And we were going home that day.
Yeah,
the day we were packing up to go home, and he's just mucking about in the guitar, and everybody else has just picked up their instruments. And I would say that took 15 minutes start to finish.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that's like for like, you know, as an opener on the album, that just seemed like a no-brainer, is that you're wanting to ease everyone into what's about to come, and it has that kind of same dynamic. It's very, very beautiful and quiet, and then just gets absolutely massive. And I think that whole vibe, that kind of set the tone. Although I think the last editions were, I wrote or started putting the pieces together for Monolith when I was in Poland. And I was just sitting around, and I had these little riffs I used to mess with, and then I just realized it was a song, sent it to Ciara on BandLab. I don't know if BandLab is just this incredible piece of software on your phone. It basically is a recording studio, but everyone can dial into it and like put their things on. So I kind of went, okay, here's this kind of song thing. And then 20 minutes later, Ciara goes, oh, well, I just wrote this beautiful piano all over it. And you're going, okay. And then she went, I think I've also written like 9 layers of harmonies, and they're really good. And you're going, okay, so this is you can do this internationally now. Yeah. It's all fine.
Like the demo version of Monolith has no words. It just has me humming in the background.
Yes. Also, I did, like, as usual, the words that I wrote were just blah, 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 like whatever mouse sounded good. And then you go, now I have to actually make this about something and write words, which is that's when I start getting a nosebleed. But it works out in the end. That's the main thing.
So stuff that you might have previously done in studio, even these kind of initial or a rehearsal space or whatever, you can now do wherever you are. If something hits you, now pick up the phone and get it on there.
Yeah, it's really, really good stuff. And Nikki actually, when she recorded her vocals for Evelyn, did that in a car in Sydney. She sat in a car in Sydney, and just because that's a really perfect dead space to record vocals. And she just sent the BandLab and went, okay, cool, just export it out, give it to Edmund, and Edmund just then slotted it in. So it's that whole thing of being able to do things internationally now is just like, it's very cool. And as we're about to enter into the cycle about writing album 2, then that's going to be, you know, just nothing's going to stop us really. So
yeah.
And you talked about having the kind of perfect opening. It just made sense. And one of the things that struck me is that the sequence really works as an album as a whole. Was that something that you had to work on, or did the songs appear in the right order almost immediately?
I think the only ones we debated was Narcopolis and Killing Time.
Yeah.
That was it. Everything else just seemed to flow pretty nicely. And I think as well, because we played a lot of new stuff whenever we did the double header with Day Sleeper in November. So we had actually we'd planned it as a set list almost. And I think even since then, you know, we found that, you know, Wasteland always like Red Vienna follows Wasteland really well, you know, so there's tracks that go together really well anyway. And I think whenever we were doing the sort of like the album order, the only ones we debated were like, should we put Narcopolis or Killing Time? And ultimately it didn't really matter.
Yeah. So. I think I think it was basically going, okay, what has this really furious ending that can lead perfectly into the Threshold? And it was like going, well, literally toss a coin here, because both Killing Time and Narcopolis just have ridiculously furious endings. I think it was actually, I think Edwin was the one. I just kind of went, producer, tell me, and he just went, this is how it works. So I, you know, as with the last process, just usually say, listen, unless we think Edwin is going to, you know, is intentionally secretly trying to ruin us, we should trust his process and just go with him. I mean, actually, the thing is, I think I did push back on a few things this time, and I think all I had to do was actually have a compelling argument, rather than, because I think what Edwin doesn't like is if you go, just don't like it, and he just goes, nah, that's not a reason. No. And you have to really articulate, you have to put your thesis together and submit it, and then do a presentation. And he goes, yeah. So yeah, I think I think that, but it felt, I don't think I ever really second guessed any of it.
We didn't really have a lot of notes, did we actually?
Yeah. And I think, well, like, you know, when you kind of got so Wasteland's so big and so huge, to then go to, it goes to Last Days, doesn't it? Oh wait, no, it goes to Secret Life. So there's that kind of like gradual kind of, and then you move into the Last Days, which is kind of more folky and more kind of 80s, and then you're kind of coming back up again. And I think that it all just seemed to kind of, you're riding a wave, and I think that was, you know, it definitely felt perfect without much thought.
We're going to hear Last Days in a moment, and I know, because I've just listened to them together, that Secret Life and Last Days Last Days comes after. And the reason I picked those two was because I thought they really kind of showed how the album flows in to each other, but can be different as well. They're quite different songs. The big sound of Secret Life, and then, as you say, a more kind of slightly more folky element in Last Days. I should say, as we're speaking, you're recovering from playing Sneaky Pete's last night, a gig.
Yes.
I'm literally recovering from it as well. Can you tell people what is a Scarred Lip live experience like?
I would say it's something you just don't want to miss, and you should take every opportunity you can to come and see us. I think we've actually got really good at this, and I think last night was probably one of the most fun gigs we've ever played. And we only did 6 tracks. We were up there for half an hour, and everything just worked really well together. I think we sound really good live, and I think the album almost sounds live. So Edwin has done a few like little videos just about like the recording process and stuff, and he speaks about how he has this kind of 3 takes and we're done. And I think there's a very live feel to the album because of that, and there's mistakes in it, and there's things that we sort of tried to fix and then just didn't, and so I think whenever you come and see us, you actually hear something that sounds really similar to the album. And that's a really lovely thing to be able to offer people.
I think there's a bit more. I think definitely live it's a bit more kind of, I think there's a bit more scrap to it. I think it can be a bit louder and a bit more angular, and I think that for me is a pretty good thing. And I think everything is, particularly the guitars, can get very rambunctious, but you're still anchoring it with Ciara's organ playing and Donald's bass playing, which really kind of keep it very, very fluid. And then on top of that, we've got 3 people singing, and the harmonizing and getting all that, really getting that right is really important. I don't like going up on stage and kind of like that, not getting it perfect. I think like every time we're doing the gig, I think last night people come up and said that the harmonies were just absolutely on point. I think the lead singer Snake Eyes was just like, I don't really like compliments very much. It's an Irish thing. We like being told then just shut up. But so whenever he came out, well, man, your voice is just really amazing. I just kind of went, thank you very much. I didn't know it was just kind of fold up inside the comment. Yeah, actually, no, it is really good. Thanks. I've been doing this for a while. I think I deserve to just accept that compliment. I'm not kind of going, I'm the best thing in the world, but like, I think that whenever we're on stage, I kind of feel like everyone's really on point, and everyone's kind of going, right, this has to be as good as it can possibly be. And last night, Edwin had to step in for Ewan to play drums, and it was actually because obviously Edwin had played drums on the album, so he knew them quite well. But like, it was just like we just did it. We went and played a gig without any kind of anxiety, which is very abnormal for me. Obviously, you're quite new to this whole thing as well. So
yeah, I think last night was definitely like the most fun that I've had on the stage in a band sort of scenario. So yeah.
And Ciara, you said that nobody should miss you if they get the chance to see you. Will there be chances in the future? Do you have plans for that?
Yeah, well, next up is actually not till September. We're playing Dunbar Music Festival this year, so that's a lot of fun. So we're doing that with Race Car, so Ewan's other band. So that'll be a really good night. We've maybe got a couple of other things up our sleeve for kind of August, September. Just haven't got confirmation yet. So
I think we'll probably end up. Sorry, good.
I was just saying, when you do, let me know. I realise that
absolutely.
Until we're absolutely signed off.
I think we'll probably end up doing our own another kind of off our own back shows, probably in the late autumn. So I think playing your hometown and doing your own kind of show like twice a year is quite good. I think I learned that from Half Formed Things. It makes it quite special, and obviously we've got quite a lot of vinyl to sell, so I think we need to just keep plugging away at that one. But yeah, so I mean, I think I really love playing Edinburgh. Wouldn't mind taking a wee, a wander out west and kind of doing something in Glasgow as well. But I think for me, I don't know if I speak for anyone else, but I feel completely out of it. I think maybe the last time I spoke to you as well is like going like, I don't know what we're doing, but Ciara knows what she's doing. So I'm relying entirely on her and her ability to just get us gigs, because I tried prior to that and it was just like silence. Whereas you're very persistent and persuasive. So I think you're definitely the public face of this band. Very sure.
Call it bandman. And I think like I said, like I think Matthew mentioned the last time that you guys spoke that this is something it's not the kind of like like musical ensemble I've ever been involved in before. It's always been like orchestras and string quartets and like folk music, like sessions and that kind of stuff. And I think that has kind of worked in my favor when it's come to begging for gigs, because nobody knows who I am. So I can just come in and just be like, they all know who he is. They're like, avoid like the plague.
I don't, yeah.
But no, I think it's been really nice for me, because I'm just like, oh hey, like I just want to do this thing, and yeah, sort of like built the networks up over the past year or so, and yeah.
You're like, yeah, I think that we are now kind of like a really fully fledged DIY band. I mean, we're not just. I think I don't think I would really want someone to suffer us to like kind of actually manage us. I think we're doing okay on our own, but I think if someone came to manage us, just kind of go. I think it's probably quite frustrating. Whereas we kind of know what's going on. We know like when, because everyone's got full-time jobs. It's like, I think that's the other thing is like, this is a very, very kind of love-oriented thing. We're not doing this for money. Otherwise I'd be sort of flyably insane. Doing this for money. Yes, I'm doing it for minus £50,000 across the span of my existence. So yeah. But yeah, I think I'm really proud of kind of how fully functional DIY we've become. And obviously that was helped a great deal by getting Creative Scotland funding. That was a significant win for us. Yeah. And I think that having that meant that we could have vinyl, we could get mastering done with Ed Woods, all those things that we probably everyone could have rated their savings, but then you're just going like, well, that's it. Then, there's no kind of like cushion for us if something happens like that. That's the most middle class thing I've ever said. Really? We'd have to rate our savings and then we'd have a cushion. But yeah,
we actually got our funding award in around the time that Creative Scotland was closing their fund.
Yes.
So I had put the application in probably about this time last year, May, June time.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And then I got it back saying, we've passed your application for funding, but we don't have any money left. And I was like, what do I need to do? And you can only reapply with the same project once. And I had 4 days to turn it around. So I was really lucky. I managed to actually get a call with somebody at Creative Scotland who kind of said, look, look at this bit, and this bit, like focus on these 3-4 bits of your application and then put it back into us and put it back in. And then I remember I was actually at work when I got the email saying that we've been awarded funding, and I tried to phone you and you didn't answer your phone, and I was like, why has he not answered his phone?
Very not like me.
And then I phoned Donal, who's my cousin, so of course he thought it was like a family emergency, and it wasn't. And then I was like, who else do I phone? So I like texted my partner because I knew he wouldn't be able to answer his phone at work, and I'm like, oh my god, this thing's happened. And I was like, Matthew must answer it. I think I sent you a couple of texts or something as well saying like, phone me back, this is really important. Because it was just such a big deal. It just made everything infinitely more possible for us, and and it meant that we could afford then to make merch and buy giant posters and
like I've always wanted a really stupid big poster, and then when we booked Bongo, they went, oh, we got a place for stupid big poster. So we got 2, so we could put one because Day Sleeper had like a really big one, and I think I underestimated how big it was. So I got our one on A0, and I started stapling them to the roof and went, Day Sleepers is much bigger than ours, because we're all in the same room in the same studio, but it's fine. They they got more members, that's why they get a bigger poster. I think just bigger. They're big. They've been shipping and doing this for longer, and I think they're definitely kind of earned their stripes. We're still getting there, I think, but we'll hopefully eventually start just getting more traction and bigger doing posters. More things. Bigger posters, more just posters everywhere.
And this might be far too simplistic, but you've got this fantastic calling card of an album that you say it sounds really close to being what you do live. Surely venues go, listen to this, we can do this live. You want this in your venue. I'm sure it's not as simple as that, but
I think once, because it's Craig at Sneakies had seen us, and I think Craig then just go, all right, okay, well that's really, really the kind of thing that you putting us on with another band. You're ensuring then that the energy of that night is going to keep going, because we're coming on just being very, very big and very kind of cinematic and grand. So I think that once people get to see us live, I think that you're just twig that we are on point. We've been doing this stuff. But I think it's the fact that you hadn't played a gig ever
till like a year ago.
Until like last. So that's the acceleration of this I think is quite significant, and I think that because you guys are that good, this early, that means I'm better up my game all the time. And I think that is, I think when we last spoke, I'd said about that, having up our game, like I'm really having to up my game because these dickheads are getting really, really good, and I like much better than me, and it's kind of going, eventually going to go, Matthew, we need you to leave because you're not as good. But you know what I mean? It's like, I think it's just really, really, it's just really exciting to be in a band going when I listen to us practice, we're like, wow, we're really, really, really good these days, and feeling really like confident about what you're doing, and not being all coy and overly humble about it. You go, no, actually, really, really, really good, and we'll only get better at this. So, it's really, really exciting. It's so cool.
Yeah, and I'll say it for you, it is really, really good. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing you live when I get the chance.
Brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah, well, we will let you know. I'll just be constantly messaging you on Insta, just going, Alan, do you want to come? Do you want to come to the game? Come on, come on.
I will absolutely be there. And this is Scarred Lip and Last Days.